Well, I think there are different categories. Words like grace and sin are so embedded in popular culture that they're really not that inaccessible, and I think you can work with them. Like, Amazing Grace is such a popular song, first of all, and such a common phrase that even though people may not have the depth you might want them to in terms of thinking about its meaning, it's there for you to work with. But eschatology is not. And so it's a little bit more challenging to get across the idea of what we mean by eschatology than it is to get across what we mean by grace. And I think core words like grace and sin, because they're so fundamental, are more accessible in everyday popular language, and so they're easier for us to work with. And words like sin also have a whole set of associated words that you could connect them to. And I actually found it helpful sometimes, not in preaching, but in teaching settings, to look at ways we've talked about this term, like hamartia, missing the mark, really actually resonates with people because they feel like there are standards out there that they fail at and actually feel pretty bad about when you find some honesty, space for truth-telling. So I do think there are core terms that are really important for us to own and to teach, and that are well known. The cross is another one. Now, people debate whether, especially in church growth movements, whether quote downer terms like the cross and sin are helpful. That depends on theological traditions, I think. If you have a very in a sense decision-oriented theology that really sin is just, I've done something wrong and I need some help in order to act right, then you don't have to focus as much on the cross. What you need is the power of the resurrection. You need a little energy booster, so Christ becomes like a can of energy booster that you drink and helps you on your way. So you don't actually need to talk about sin, and so I worry about that, and I try, sometimes even in preaching, to differentiate why different theological understandings matter in how we live our lives. Do you really think that you can get along just fine and you just need a little energy booster? Well, what does that look like? It means if you fail, it's your fault. You know, so I think the practical breaking out of what a theological perspective looks like in terms of a lived life is a way to connect with people. I do that with Scripture too. Do you really think every word of Scripture is of equal value? Well, that becomes, once you start spelling it out that way, that kind of understanding of Scripture becomes pretty problematic. And people understand that, I think, when you break it down in practical ways that they can connect to.